Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to Sentinel Reviews. It's finally time once again for the staple of my channel. Today, we are looking at The Diary of River Song, Series 5. As always, this series was directed by Ken Bentley. This was released in January of 2019, and Series 5 stars Alex Kingston as River Song, Michelle Gomez as the Master, Jeffrey Beavers as the Master, Eric Roberts as the Master, and Sir Derek Jacobi as the Master. As always, these box sets have 4 stories to them, so I will review each story individually, and then give my overview and rank them at the end. And also, spoiler warning. I will be talking spoilers, so if you haven't heard The Diary of River Song Series 5 yet, I really suggest it. And Series 5 opens with The Bechdel Test by Jonathan Morris. River has just begun serving time in the storm cage, serving her numerous life sentences for killing the Doctor. However, she is suddenly and mysteriously whisked away to the Bechdel Institute. Who wants to use River as a publicity stunt? The only prison that can hold River Song. But it's not the security River has to worry about. It's the inmates, especially one in particular, who is mad that River killed the Doctor first. So the Bechdel test is a very important story, as this is the Big Finish debut of the most recent incarnation of the Master, Missy, Michelle Gomez. So there was a lot of expectation, I would say. This and one other story had a lot of expectation and a lot of hype for it. And thankfully, this was a really good story. Now, I've said that because I consider Sir Derek Jacobi an audio master, that Michelle Gomez is the best master of the revived series. But I did always have one problem with her, and in my ranking of the Masters video, I've talked about this. It's that, unlike every actor who's played the Doctor, where it always feels like they've inherited the legacy of the character, I never got that with Gomez as the Master in the series, as good as she was. But here, in the audio, she actually really feels like the Master. And well, she feels more like the Master than she did in the series. So, yeah, there's that. And, you know, like I said, one of the reasons I like her over John Sim is that, like John Sim, she does the crazy shtick, but she actually does it in a way that's menacing. There is a lot of scenes in the Bechdel test where Missy comes across as really imposing, and they are really good scenes. One of my favorites is where she just goes on a rampage and kills several prisoners. I also liked her dynamic with Alex Kingston. I thought they had good chemistry. You're going to hear me saying that a lot, by the way, throughout this review, so just be ready for it. But yeah, Gomez and Kingston played off each other really well, and they had a really interesting dynamic as the Doctor's wife and the Doctor's best enemy. The story was also surprisingly funny. There's a scene when River meets Missy for the first time. Missy is being all subtle and dropping these hints about who she is, and then River assumes she's the Ronnie, which I think is sort of a nod to Series 8, because before her reveal in Darkwater, I think almost everyone expected Missy to be the Ronnie. I know I certainly did, and I've talked with a few other people who felt they did too before the reveal. And then River figures out who Missy is, and she accuses her of being the monk, which led to one of my favorite lines in this series. The monk. The monk. Alright, that's it. I'm going to pull your head off. And again, that really led to one of the traits about Missy, is that she has a hair trigger. She is quick to anger. She is short-fused. And, you know, like I said, it's one of those... And she's just so casual about it, too. That is one of the things I liked about Roger Delgado. Rather than being this big, imposing Emperor Palpatine evil-like figure, he came across a lot as very casual. And I mean, just say what you will about Michelle Gomez, but man, she has the charisma of Roger Delgado. And the rest of the story was good too. The prisoners were interesting. Well, two of them were. Oh no, not even two of them. One of them was really interesting. She was this artist who killed people and then sculpted their bodies into works of art, which was very grisly. This story was very grisly. And yeah, there's not really more to say about that. I'm trying to figure out where else I want to go on this particular review talking about this. I like the cubes. Like I said in my The False Guardian review, or this might actually go up before The False Guardian goes up, I like how we're getting performances with these robot characters, and they're supposed to be bland and monotone like robots are, but they still find a way to inject so much the actors find a way to inject so much personality into these characters, and I really liked the cubes with these robotic drone guards to the prison. Also, when Series 5 was announced, I kind of had issues with the title, the Bechdel test. It was on the nose, but then after listening to the making of and listening to the story play out, it kind of works better because the title is also a joke. Because the Bechdel test is a test of if two female characters in fiction, TV, movie, book, etc., how long can they have a conversation and carry a conversation without bringing up a man? And that's kind of the joke of this episode. These two characters were brought together to talk about the Doctor. So, yeah, it was a fun story. No, yeah, it was a really fun story, and with a lot of humor, and while I liked Missy in the Revive series, I think this series handled her and her as the Master so much better. And now the second story, Animal Instinct by Roy Gill. On the planet of Cheska Major, River Song is taking one of her archaeology students for their practical exam. They decide to break into the museum after hours and open the casket of the legendary sun god. River expects one thing, but finds something else entirely. Enticed by an offer she can't refuse, River is going to learn just how much she is like the Master. So, how to start this one? Well, first, thinking about it, I realized, like a couple people realized, this is the first story in a long time where we've had the Jeffrey Beavers Master show up. Last year we had I Am the Master as well, but yeah, it seemed like he'd been absent for a while. So that was nice to see him again. Unfortunately, Animal Instinct is the weakest story in this set. River and this Master, the Jeffrey Beavers Master, have a great dynamic, but man, this story is a slog to get through, at least for me. And it's not that it's bad, it's just it's a slog. And that's saying something because I've started doing this thing for reviews where to get a better grasp on the stories, I listen to them 3 times at least before reviewing. And I think I may need a new method of doing that for box sets because yeah, as I said, River and Alex Kingston and Jeffrey Beavers have great chemistry and they play off each other well, but outside of those interactions, this story just didn't really catch me. And I'm already forgetting his name. River, as I mentioned, River had an archaeology student that she was taking on this exam, and no, here's the thing. All of the side characters in this are red shirts, and you pick up on that very early in the beginning, and because they're very one note, and it doesn't help at all. This one's a struggle. Because this story was really bland as well. It was a fairly standard master manipulates X for his own purposes, and now that I think about it, I feel like we always get that story with Jeffrey Beavers, with the Jeffrey Beavers master. You know, it was that kind of story with the Keeper of Traken. It was that kind of story with And You Will Obey Me. He literally told the audience that story in I Am the Master. Another issue I had with this story is the comedy. While the comedy itself was good, I don't think making this particular master the focus of a more comedic story works. And I noticed there was more humor being injected into the Jeffrey Beavers master, and it's just, well, not the most dangerous, or I would say the Jeffrey Beavers master is one of the most ruthless, and it's just, having these comedic moments with him feels out of place. We did learn something interesting about River because she was able to resist the master's hypnosis. And I thought that was a nice scene, and I will talk about that more later. But, what else? Here's the thing. It felt like this story was too long. I don't remember exactly where it happened, but it was like by the time they reached the temple to get the master's MacGuffin device, and then these Panther people came in. I still recommend it. Listen to it. I'm not explaining it. It's like, oh my god, just end already. Why do you keep adding stuff this late in the game? So yeah, while River has a great dynamic with this master, I really need to shut off my phone before doing these. But yeah, while River has a great dynamic with this master, outside of that, this story isn't that good, and really, as you just saw me struggle, it's not that memorable. The Lifeboat and the Death Boat by Eddie Robson. After a malfunction of her vortex manipulator, River is stranded in the vortex. Luckily, she's rescued by a desperate father trying to get his daughter home. All the while, a deadly creature known as the Vormatoda wreaks havoc through the vortex. But something else lurks in the vortex. A danger River is not prepared to face. So, like the Bechdel test, this was a very anticipated story for the Diary of River Song, Series 5, as this featured the long-awaited return of the Eric Roberts Master. Now, again, for those of you new to Doctor Who, in the 1990s, 1996, there was an attempt to revive Doctor Who after the classic series cancellation. And it was a joint production by the US and the UK through Warner Brothers and the BBC. And they created a movie, a TV movie, that would serve as a pilot to this new series. But only if it performed well on both fronts. It performed extremely well in the UK, not so well in the US. Partially because it was aired on Fox. And if Firefly, Dollhouse, and Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles are any indication, yeah, Fox doesn't like sci-fi very much. Excuse me. Anyway, this movie featured Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor and Eric Roberts as the Master. And Eric Roberts is kind of universally remembered as one of the worst masters of all time. Like, literally, if you're going to watch that movie, you might want to take a tent for all the camp. I'm sorry. That joke was funnier in my head. But anyway, yeah. So, I was... honestly, when Series 5 was announced, this is the story I was the most hyped for. Because in the past, with, say, Mel, for example, who was a companion I did not like, Big Finish has taken Doctor Who's sewage and turned it to gold. So I was really looking forward to this story to see how they do the Master. And this was really good. Like, first of all, has there ever been a story set in the Vortex? Like, I know there's been stories set in the TARDIS, like Edge of Destruction, but has there been a story that's just been set in the Vortex? Because, again, that's where this story is set, so... River's chemistry with this particular Master wasn't as good as the other Masters, as we'll see, but I'll get into that a little bit more when I talk about Eric Roberts' performance in this. So yeah, basically the story is that River... Because this story sort of opens up after everything's already happened. River has already been stranded in the Vortex. She's met Daniel and his daughter. And yeah, basically they're living on this floating junkyard through the Vortex as they try to find a piece to a time ship that can get them out. And then there's also a B story here. Like I mentioned the Vormatoda in my little recap. The Vormatoda is sort of this serpent, I think it's a serpent anyway, that journeys through the Vortex and it attacks time ships. And the B story is that this man, recently fired from his job for circumstances beyond his control, has been drafted into the service of this mercenary. And while they're on their own adventure, they come across the Vormatoda because this mercenary, Admiral Eno is her name, is sort of this Captain Ahab type character. And that is one of my critiques with this story, is that the A plot and the B plot, despite both sort of revolving around the Vormatoda, didn't gel too well. It wasn't until, like... And I think the B plot was only done to... Well, A, by the end, get everyone back home, and B, sort of help to explain the Vormatoda a little bit better. Let's see what I want to do. Okay, the Master. I guess I'll talk about him now. I've always been somewhat defensive of Eric Roberts when people talk about him as the Master. Not that I like his performance in the movie, because, again, you need a tent for all the camp. But I do think a lot of what happened in the movie wasn't his fault. You know, as an actor, there's a lot you can do with a role, but so much of what you have to do relies on your director. You know, is it what the director wants? Is it what, is he giving you the right notes? Is he telling you what he needs for the role? And yeah, the more I think about it, especially after listening to this story, I think the failings of the Roberts Master was more on the direction than anything else. Because Eric Roberts is a great actor. And yeah, no, his scenes are really great in this. He's very suave, he's charming, again, charismatic. Like, some people have compared him to Roger Delgado. I'm not going to go that far. I'd probably say he's closer to Anthony Ainley, but less Saturday Morning, if that makes any sense. Like, two of my favorite scenes are the quote used in the trailer, for one thing, where he's talking to this woman, and I'll get to her. Do you realize how many people have tried to kill me over the years? My own people have tried to kill me. Gods have tried to kill me. The Daleks did kill me, and yet here I am. I really like the line, and I really like the delivery on that line. And after Admiral Eno's time ship crashes into their junkyard thing, long story, he comes across a surviving crew member, and he had a really good scene there. He's all whispering and quiet, and I love, again, it's a tense scene, and it's just... He basically tells this injured crew member, with medical attention, you could survive. But I don't want you to. And no, that was a great scene. Like I said, my one major issue is that some of his deliveries are a little off, and there is a reason for that. When Eric Roberts agreed to do this, he was contracted to another project, a film, I believe. So he could not fly to the UK to the Big Finish studio and record with everyone else. Instead, what they did was executive producer Jason Haig-Ellery flew out to LA where he was filming, and they filmed his lines in a separate studio. So a lot of his deliveries don't come across as natural. Like, the conversations he has, some of them don't flow naturally because he wasn't there with the other actors to create a more natural atmosphere. But for the most part, except for those instances, it was really great. As I said, the Master, I didn't say it earlier, sorry, but no, the Master is posing as a man named Daniel, who was stranded in the vortex with his daughter, Allison. Allison was okay. I don't think they should have given a British actress that role. I'm forgetting her name. I think it was Lucy Heath. But it's just, she was okay for the most part. Some of the terminology she used, because the idea is that she was this girl from the 80s, some of it was a little annoying. But, really, it's just, they should have gotten she should have worked on her accent a little more, or they should have hired an American actress for the part, because there were just moments where you could tell she struggled with the accent, and you could hear her accent drop. And then there was also, like Animal Instinct, there was a lot of superfluous stuff going on. Like, by the third act, because Admiral Eno and her crew were tasked with hunting down this psychic criminal, and in the third act, she's brought onto the ship and starts causing her own kind of mayhem. And yeah, I felt that was just superfluous. Where else do I want to go with this review? I do like that it was left open-ended by the end, where, we could get more stories with the Roberts Master, because I think he could continue to grow, and he could hopefully fly into the Big Finish studio at some point to record with the cast and be a really great master. I know there was something else I wanted to talk about. I cannot remember what it was, and I know if I forget to do it before I end this segment, it's gonna come back to bite me. Nope, next story. And Series 5 concludes with Concealed Weapon by Scott Hancock. Leaving the planet Peltraxis from a recent expedition, River and the crew are brought out of stasis, only for one of the crew members to die under mysterious circumstances. As the bodies start piling up, River finds herself face to face with an old foe, possibly in his most dangerous guise yet. So, not gonna lie, I wasn't really all that hyped for Concealed Weapon. I wasn't not excited for it, it was just kind of there. Really. But after listening to that, boy, my opinion changed immediately. This is a phenomenal, really good thriller story. Like Animal Instinct, it's a very standard story. This one's sort of it's very Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien, where, something's off, something's going wrong, and the crew that is being picked off one by one. But really what sells this is Sir Derek Jacobi as the Master. Like, Peter Pratt is still, from The Deadly Assassin, is still my favorite Master, but Sir Derek Jacobi may be the most frightening incarnation of the Master. He just has such a commanding presence. Also, compared to the last three stories, this story is very different, because in the last three stories, River found herself in an uneasy alliance working with the Master, whereas in this story, they are directly opposing each other. And unlike Animal Instinct, the side characters here were really good. The side characters were one note, but I think they were done a little bit better. You had The captain, who was played by Jacqueline King, who last time worked with Sir Derek on the Unbound story Deadline, and also appeared in the series as Sylvia Noble, Donna's mother. And then how many were there? I think there was like four. There was 3 or 4 other people along with the captain and River for a total of 5. The computer, though, Hugo. Oh, that was a great character. Like I said with the cubes in the Bechdel test, about the robots, and even though it's monotone, there's still a way to inject personality into him. But yeah, Hugo was great, and as the story gets on, you feel something isn't right with him until you learn exactly what's going on, and it's just, by the end of the first third of the story, you could pretty much guess that something was about what was going to happen with Hugo, but it was still worked really good. And so far, of what I've heard with the War Master, this story had my favorite War Master scene. One of the crew members comes across him, and, because a scan of the ship found that there was an extra person on board, and River assumed it was the doctor. So when this person finds him, it's just, "Are you the doctor?" And his response is, "Would it make you feel better if I was?" And when she says yes, he just bluntly tells her, "No, I'm most certainly not." And I just love that scene because it really sells something about the War Master. There is no pretenses with him. He is very blunt. He just gets things done. There's no games. There's no beating around the bush. And so much of this was great because of Sir Derek's terrifying performance. And Alex Kingston worked off it really well. I do think there is a little bit too much exposition going on, though. Like, by the last half of the story, the Master is just storytelling everything that's happened, and I do think it went on a little long. And then the climax feels tacked on. I do like how daring River is in this story, though. Basically, the Master sets the ship to self-destruct, and he has it set so that the order cannot be countermanded. And River, so that the Master's plans don't come to fruition, accelerates the self-destruct sequence to 2 minutes. So, there's still River's sense of danger. There's still her sense of, daring against this Master. And then the Master hypnotizes River again. Only this time it works, because it didn't work in Animal Instinct. I had issues with this at first, but then someone explained to me this was a plot point that was explained in the Master of Callus. And then I thought, okay, that makes sense, because I didn't hear the Master of Callus, so I wouldn't have caught that. And what's really interesting about this story, too, is that River loses. Yeah, no, the Master kind of loses, too, but yeah, no, River loses, and just that ending scene is, because of what happened, is kind of haunting. Because she doesn't even know she's lost. And I will say, though, after listening to the making of, this story does have me interested in the War Master Volume 3, The Rage of the Time Lords, because apparently what the War Master was doing here is going to tie into that release. But yeah, no, I enjoyed this one tremendously. And now the overview. So, I think overall, Series 5 might have replaced Series 2 as my favorite release. Overall, like I said, I still think 529 is the best individual story in the range, and I think World Enough in Time is still my favorite individual story in the range. Both of them from Series 2, but yeah, I think on the whole, Series 5, might be my favorite. When it was initially announced, I was worried because the last 4 series, all 4 stories in each set added up to one ongoing plot. And then Series 5 was going to be an anthology. Each story was going to be isolated. And I thought, because I'd heard the classic Doctor's New Monsters anthology, I thought, oh, that's not going to work. An hour is not enough time to tell these stories. And thankfully, I didn't have any problem with that. Like I said, I thought Animal Instincts went on too long. Although I do wish, because Big Finish has once again sort of changed the way they're doing things slightly. Like, each story has an intro. You know, basically it's just a brief opening. You're listening to a Big Finish production. Kind of like how the early main range stuff did it. Like, for example, and now a new 4-part adventure starring Colin Baker in Doctor Who. I do wish Big Finish didn't do the end credit sequences, though. I think that just giving the time to them, even if it is like 30, 40 seconds, I think it kind of takes away from time that could have been given to the story. Especially because we buy these, we have that information. That's kind of superfluous. But yeah, I really recommend Series 5. I think it is, for anyone new to the Diary of River Song, for anyone wanting to check it out, I think Series 5 is a great starting point. The stories themselves, I would probably rank them The Lifeboat and the Death Boat, The Bechdel Test, Concealed Weapon, and Animal Instinct. So that's it for the Diary of River Song Series 5. Join me again next time for Series 6. At this present moment, the cover art hasn't... Excuse me. At this present moment, the cover art hasn't been revealed, so enjoy the promotional image. Anyway, join me again for the Diary of River Song Series 6, when River will still not meet the Doctor, but her adventures will be taking place in the background of some of the Doctor's greatest adventures. An Unearthly Child, The Web of Fear, Carnival of Monsters, and The Talons of Weng Chiang. So what did you think? Start a conversation in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, and then click the little bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload. Because subscribe doesn't do that anymore. In the description box below, you'll find the link to my Twitter, where you can follow me and the channel. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next time. Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about in the light.